Today, we're going to be taking a look at the final job you require in Bravely Default 2, one worthy of closing out this long series with. The Bravebearer. The Bravebearer specializes in manipulating all combatants on the field at once, providing constant sources of BP and outfitting themselves in any role that the party needs for any given obstacle. They have the best base stat lineup in the game, excluding specialty bonuses, and have standard weapon proficiencies, making them the ultimate all-rounder job. So, let's get started by talking about the Bravebearer's first specialty, Adrenaline. When the Bravebearer defeats an enemy in combat, they are granted +1 BP immediately. This triggers once per enemy, but not once per turn. So, if you kill 3 goblins in one turn, Adrenaline will activate 3 times, giving the Bravebearer 3 extra BP. This is excellent in fights with tons of mobs on screen at once, but you can also make use of your own teammates as a self-sacrifice for your Bravebearer in order to give them more BP. The latter example is definitely not the most practical, but damn is it funny. The second Bravebearer specialty is True Grit. This specialty will increase the amount of BP the Bravebearer gets at the start of their turn by 1. This mainly helps in keeping the momentum of this job constantly rolling, as you essentially will have double the natural turn economy of other jobs. And this can steamroll with Adrenaline to keep your Bravebearer from ever seeing the negatives. Passive abilities like Rewarding Results or skills like Recurring Nightmare, which reset their users' turns, will actually keep triggering True Grit. So, another means of compiling BP while tormenting your foes. The Bravebearer's special move is Limit Break, which is a powerful single-target physical attack that also grants 1 BP to the entire party. The bonus effect of Limit Break is a 30% boost to the party's physical attack and magic attack. Send this move to beef up your team and humble your enemy, then use the extra BP and buffs to finish off the fight. Now we move on to the Bravebearer's combat abilities, starting with Super Gravity, Hypergravity, and Giga Gravity. All 3 of these attacks deal a set amount of damage to all enemies based on the Bravebearer's current HP. Super Gravity deals damage equal to 25% of your current HP, Hypergravity is 50%, and Giga Gravity is 75%. These gravity attacks do not scale with any type of damage buff, but they can deal more damage if you have the Maximize HP passive, letting your max HP be doubled, which in turn lets these moves deal more damage. For how frail most regular mobs are in this game, these attacks can be pretty reliable in sweeping entire groups of enemies away, and with a bit of prep, they can deal respectable damage, just nothing groundbreaking. Next is Wall of Woe and Dawn of Odyssey. Wall of Woe will place a buff on all combatants, ally and foe alike, that will passively remove 1 BP from everyone 3 times. This is mostly to help manage encounters with enemies that like defaulting often or have +1 BP counters. Dawn of Odyssey is the inverse of Wall of Woe, passively giving +1 BP 3 times throughout combat. You can use this to help grant BP to your team over the course of the fight, so long as you don't mind your enemies having more BP to work with. In encounters where bosses are going to be at +3 BP more often than they aren't, Dawn of Odyssey is essentially only beneficial to your team anyways, so go at it. Next up is Practice Makes Perfect and Best Practice. These attacks scale their damage entirely based on the amount of game time you have on your current save file. Best Practice hits twice compared to Practice Makes Perfect, which only hits once. These abilities wouldn't be so bad if the scaling on them wasn't absolutely horrendous, as you need a lot of playtime in order to make these attacks do any kind of respectable damage. For example, this is my playtime for the file I used to compile all of my Bravely Default 2 research, including these job videos. And you're seeing the damage I'm doing. Yikes. Next is Equalizer. This ability will attempt to equalize all BP on the field by reducing anyone with +1 BP or more by 1, and giving 1 BP to anyone who has -1 BP or lower. Use this ability to keep an enemy's BP in check, or to get a teammate out of the negatives quicker. Next up is Victory Smite and Victory Double. These attacks scale their damage based on how many battles you've won on your current save file. Chain battles count as only 1 fight, so think of it as only accounting for the amount of times you've seen the battle results screen. Similar to the game time attacks, these two abilities just don't scale very well and honestly feel like wasted slots. If you win a bunch of fights, then sure, maybe you can make these work slightly better, but don't bet on it. And last up for combat abilities is BP Bump. This ability is incredibly simple, as all it does is raise the entire party's BP count by 1. This is the most straightforward and easy way to use BP battery abilities in the whole game, and is just another way for the Bravebearer to manipulate their party's BP count during the course of a battle. Now on to passive abilities, starting with Sword Lore. Equipping this passive will allow its user to have S-rank affinities with swords, regardless of their prior ranking. This can be quite handy, as not only is there a damage buff tied to this, but there are also a few specialties and abilities that have extra bonuses or only activate when its user has a sword equipped, so keep that in mind. Next is Obliterate. This passive will instantly kill all enemies on the field at the beginning of combat if the user is 20 levels or higher than the target's level. If any enemy is immune to instant death, however, Obliterate will not trigger on them, no matter its level range, so keep that in mind. Also, if you are aiming to capture monsters for the Beastmaster, Obliterate will halt you from being able to capture anything, even if you do have Beast Whisperer equipped. Use Obliterate to level grind, as you mow down enemies super fast in the endgame with this passive alone. Next up is Subjob Specialty 2. This passive will allow its user to have access to their subjob's second specialty. This is genuinely a game changer, as more often than not, the second specialty of a job is the most impactful aspect of a job's whole hit. This can grant any job things like Results Guaranteed, Chain Spell, In One's Element, Late Bloomer, and Creature Comforts, to name a few. This passive alone opens up so many ways to play Bravely Default 2, and is usually a cornerstone in any late game builds. And last up for passive abilities is Across the Board. This is another game-changing passive, as it allows for any single target ability to now have group cast potential. There are very few exceptions to look out for, but this passive can open up so many new builds or strategies, a few being AoE BP drinks from the Salvemaker, hitting all enemies with Neo Cross Slash from the Vanguard, casting splatters on all foes from the Pictomancer, and many, many, many more. Mess around with this passive, and I'm sure you'll find something super crazy that'll change how you approach combat. The Bravebearer is an incredibly strong job in its own right, especially as it has the best base stat lineup in the game and many ways to support the party with its BP manipulation. This allows us to simply meld this job into literally anything we want. Though, to be more specific, we could lean into offense and pick up the Vanguard as a sub-job, with its high damage potential and aggro management. You could become the team's primary damage dealer and tank while supplementing your own BP with enemy kills or Dawn of Odyssey. We could decide to go full team support with Bard and make ourselves an unkillable buffer, providing aid to the party through stat buffs and BP bumps. Or we could go full on BP Battery and Ailment Junkie with Salvemaker. But to be completely honest, the Bravebearer has something for every job. As the capstone job of Bravely Default 2, you can truly shape it into however you like, and you will find some use for it somewhere on your team, regardless of its setup. The Bravebearer is the ultimate job of Bravely Default 2, on paper. It has the best stats in the game, barring Late Bloomer and Creature Comforts. It has powerful AoE attack options and many ways of supplying or restricting BP in combat. You can make this job work however you want, and that vast array of options can be both exciting and maybe a little overwhelming. So what could this job possibly do wrong? Well, as you've seen, there are definitely some stinkers when it comes to combat abilities, mainly the ones that scale based on game time or victories. As in a normal playthrough, you will never have enough of either for these actions to be worth your time. And speaking of time, this job is just obtained far too late in the game. It's literally obtained just before the finale of the game, and because there isn't a lot for you to do after credits have rolled, the Bravebearer can kinda just feel shoehorned in. Regardless of this, the Bravebearer is a cool capstone job that feels powerful when used and experimented with, but due to some poor timing and weird abilities, it isn't uncommon for people to just not make use of it, or want to make use of it. And now we've come to our final fashion tier list of Bravely Default 2. Will we wrap up on a high note, or will this series end in a whimper? Well, I have to be 100% honest with myself and you guys. The Bravebearer design absolutely rocks. The idea to take the initial freelancer outfits, give them a darker color scheme, then contrast them with the white coats and unique crystal colors was a genius choice. Each character has their own signature color on the insides of their white coat, with the color matching the crystal of that chosen hero. Green for Seth, blue for Gloria, yellow for Elvis, and red for Adele. Individually, I adore each design, with Seth's being my all-time favorite look for him, and is my favorite look in all of Bravely Default 2, just barely beating out Adele's monk look, with the others not being too far behind if I'm being honest. Also, it is a little poetic, as this fashion tier list does kind of end where it started, with the freelancer design, but now we can see just how far we've come since then. So with that, the fashion tier list comes to a close with my favorite job design in Bravely Default 2 as a whole. Thank you so much for watching.